for the task force at the July 14th Board of Supervisors hearing, and that our first meeting for the task force could begin as early as July 21st. And that pretty much concludes my presentation, and I'll take any questions from the board at this time.
Thank you, Mary. Supervisor Pyska.
There's a lot here that wasn't in our board packet, and I'm not really prepared to have the discussion right now on changing these tactics. I don't know how you feel, but I need some time to think about this. I don't know the difference between a task force and a team and how they work together. I don't understand that. There's been a lot of changes since reviewing the agenda.
Vice Chair Scott.
For me, I think we need to be focusing on the task force members. Mary gave us a lot of information. I think it was a lot of extra information just for our knowledge of what she's wanting to do and move forward. I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think ultimately we just need to make the decision that we want to have a task force and what that task force is going to look like, the makeup of it. And do we agree with what she's laid out here, what those 9 members need to look like? I think that's what we really need to agree on today, so we can start taking applications and get that process moving. I think that's the most important thing today.
Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, no, I'm going to focus on the task force because I think that there's always the ability to get feedback from certain departments, such as our sheriff or code enforcement, things like that. And so I think there's always going to be some review mechanisms or the ability for input to come to us. I'd like to simplify a lot of it. I appreciate the idea of getting a planning commissioners involved, but I know that to me that might be asking a lot from a planning commissioner. I know that there's already quite a bit on their plate, and the review of this will eventually get to them as well before it's finalized. In my mind, I just to simplify things, I think that having an even keel lobbyist, so Lake County Cannabis Alliance and the Farm Bureau, I think that makes it a balanced approach. Having the Ag Commissioner, just because we are talking about ag and we need to make sure that we look at this from in my opinion, look at this from the perspective of how does ag work. But having all of the other positions, I think that is not necessary other than maybe having 2 supervisors on there. But even that, I think those 3 positions are the only really key ones. And then the rest is just conversations to bring the information to the committee. This is, I want to make sure that we're moving forward and not starting from scratch, and also not looking at this as if it's a, because again, the invitation to the sheriff, I think that we can have a conversation, but having a sheriff member seat, I think that's not necessary. I think that's it's a commercial activity that is legally allowed here in the state of California. There's specific rules and regulations, and I think that we just need to make sure that what we create is reviewed by those departments, and then input provided, but not necessarily having to have them as a member of the task force. So I would say 5 is what I'm offering.
Instead of 9?
Yeah.
Supervisor Simon?
Looking. Yeah. I don't think the 9 numbers off. It's just, like we said, focusing on who needs to be. I definitely agree with the Farm Bureau being an opportunity there. I know that Director Darby, you mentioned someone from Department of Cannabis Control. Can you remind me who you were thinking on that, or is that just a label? I thought you had mentioned something in the past that someone had worked for Department of Cannabis Control that might be interested in it.
In terms of the DCC, we did have a representative that's interested in helping us develop our ordinance to be specifically designed for Lake County.
All right, thank you. And, I just have a difference of opinion. I think a planning commission being on this is a good recommendation, so I'm good with the 9, and I would agree with, like you said, maybe law enforcement and taking law enforcement out and just be code enforcement there, because they're going to be probably the initial ones first dealing with all this. So I like the 9 number, but adding the Farm Bureau, and where were you potentially, so we have a community member?
So we would actually have 3 different community members. So if you look at the, you're not looking at my screen anymore. So I have a community member that's going to represent the northeast and northwest quadrants.
Can you
And
put that
then one
slide back?
for the southeast and
So that's on
southwest
there.
quadrants.
So it's not on here.
And then I added a community organization group as a member. So you would have like 3 actual community members that's a part of the task force.
Well, maybe instead of that third action group, maybe it's the Farm Bureau that we need to have in that seat?
I definitely
Well-
think the Farm Bureau needs to be on there.
Can you put that slide back up? So
Yes,
we can
ma'am.
see?
Just a second.
Thanks.
Can you see it?
Not yet.
Not yet, it'll come up.
Looks like
Okay.
it's loading.
And I think we have to remind the
There
public
we go.
too, that even though we may pick this 9-member team, this is open to the public, right? This conversation will be open for anybody to engage.
Yes, absolutely. All the meetings will be Zoomed. Even the team that I'm recommending that review the recommendations of the task force, I added that team because when the first draft of the ordinance was prepared, I was not authorized to release the ordinance until it was reviewed by the Board of Supervisors. I would like to have the opportunity to receive input for some of the other county employees prior to providing comments back and forth to the task force or to the Board of Supervisors.
So we've got, on this 9-member list, the only staff, we have the ag commissioner, we have planning commissioner, and we have code enforcement. So how do the other department heads, like water resources and the rest of CDD, interact with this group?
So they won't necessarily interact with this group directly. From CDD's point of view, we would actually send out the recommendations to the task force, to the other team, the operating other department heads and the team, the second team that I listed, for just review and input from the recommendations from the task force.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I'll add back in, I appreciate the comments from Supervisor Simon. I made a mistake, and yes, I think having a public member and providing the input from a public perspective is going to be important as well. And I'm okay with if there's a planning commissioner on there. I was just being cautious for the fact that they do get paid for the specific meetings they get to, and they wouldn't be paid for the meetings that we're asking them to be a part of here. So that's why I was being cautious. But I think their perspective is also going to be necessary. But I think that I agree with the comment made by Director Darby about interaction with the water resources. I just think it gets really complicated when you have too many people on the list, but it's very available to have that level of communication with any and all departments to get their feedback as we progress through the revision.
I have another comment. So is there a way, this question's for Anita. I know she's trying to make sure that we have community members from all sections or 2 sections of our community. Is there a way we can say that we would like to have somebody from the northeast and somebody from the southeast, like recommended, but if we're unable to fill those community positions in those certain areas, we can fill that community position with another address, so we can keep that a little bit open, because I think sometimes I get concerned when we make it too small for a community to get involved, we don't get the proper applications, and then that spot is vacant.
I think that you can address it from you know, if possible type of scenario. It appears here what you're looking for are just community members without any particular affinity for or against locations, et cetera, just kind of members at large, but from particular locations. So I think you can, if it is possible.
I would like to see that, just so we don't have a vacant spot.
Okay, so if we're looking at this list and we're adding 2 Board of Supervisor members, and we're also adding the Farm Bureau, then
I don't think we're adding the Board of Supervisors to this.
we're not
No.
this
No.
list, so it's going to be the working or the other team?
Yes, it would be, yes.
Okay.
So the other team would not actually have a vote in the task force. It would only be a task force group. I can put the other list up as well if you like.
And then I was actually looking at number 5, the community organization group, instead of being the Farm Bureau. Changing that, so it's them. But
I would agree, yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
And then if you took away the northeast and northwest, your comment would be.
But we only
just
have 2 on that, Mary, so hold on.
2 community members, right? That's what you're looking for in 3 and 4? So
2
it don't have to
community
be
members.
specific, It would just say 2 community members, right?
Well, I would like to see if we couldn't get that, but have it open where this is what we would like. But if we don't get that, then
Open.
it's, But I don't know if I have a third person willing to change that farm.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've already stated the Farm Bureau.
I'm just,
And so then number 8 is code enforcement only?
I think,
I wanted both. My list is somewhat similar.
I guess you could keep it open and we can decide when it comes to us.
I think, of course, you got tribal government, I agree with that. Where it says Cannabis Alliance, I'd like to see cannabis industry focusing on cultivation, cannabis industry focusing on processing, non-cultivation. Community member North Shore, community member South Shore, or however quadrant, law and code enforcement, environmental organization weighted on biological aspects, agricultural such as the Farm Bureau, vineyard owner or farmer, and then the consultant, I think it's the same, it's just different, a name that I have weighted on water hydraulical.
So what's the number that you're looking at for a board?
I have 9 or 10 because of the code enforcement and law enforcement split.
But you broke up the number 2 to like 4 different.
Just 2. So I did, instead of having the Cannabis Alliance, I have cannabis industry cultivation and processing. And then, so it is, I think it is 11 because I added code enforcement and law enforcement. But
I guess I get concerned when it gets too big and then we have a hard time getting everybody to be able to, with their calendars, get someplace. That's,
So I had that thought too on cultivation and processing, but I'm hoping that just the Cannabis Alliance representative can speak to all of those and have that background.
because what you're going to get, what you're going to get with community members is the loudest anti-person. That's what's going to happen. So we need to have a balance. I would like to see 4 community members, pro and anti. I mean, I know what you mean about too many people, but for me, I like having a balanced effort of voices and not kind of stacking it either way. I know we're not trying to do that, but sometimes the applications will come that way, and that's just my opinion, though. And I think I'm the only one that wants a lot more, so I don't have, yeah.
Everyone's else scratching off, you're adding.
I like a smaller board to make sure we can get a quorum to be able to have a meeting. 'Cause that's when things get extended.
Oh, Susan?
Susan, yes.
May I ask a clarifying question? Because looking at the title on this agenda, it says consideration of task force / and/or, I'm assuming you meant and/or ad hoc committee. Is this team a task force, or is this team the ad hoc committee?
So my recommendation is that it's a task force. However, in-house, I've been seeing the terminology ad hoc. So when I / that means, and like it's all one and one terminology. But if we only had to use one terminology, I would use task force or ad
Ms.
hoc,
Grant?
one or the other, but It's not two separate entities.
So, if I may, I understand what task force ad hoc is just truly a descriptor that goes to duration. And ad hoc is for a particular purpose. Once its goal of that particular purpose is achieved, then the ad hoc committee dissolves. So that's the point of ad hoc. And I'm sorry to be dim, but I'm lost as to, is team different? So team is something else entirely. Okay, just so that everyone knows, you've got two essentially competing groups. And the only one that's on the agenda is the ad hoc task force. So if you're going to do a team, you'll have to take that up and populate it, unfortunately, at another time, because it's not on the agenda item. But the other part of this is that an ad hoc is going to have to be Brown Act compliant if it's populated by members of the public. And in both cases, these will both be. So, which is fine. I mean, it's good to have public involvement. I'm just wanting to make sure that you understand it doesn't matter what you call it.
Thank you. So my strategy and logistics for these meetings, they will be Brown Act compliant. Every meeting will have a Zoom component to it, so the public could comment and be a part of the meetings. The meetings would actually take place where public comments could be taken at the beginning of the group hearing meeting, as well as the end. And I am looking into possibly if there would be another spot during the middle of our conversations where the community would be able to comment.
So I see the way it's written right now is that the cannabis industry has only one seat, and with the Ag and the Farm Bureau, there's 2 seats, and then 2 members of the public. So I feel like we need to leverage the experience of our industry more by having a little bit more participation.
Right. That's why I wanted to see from, yeah. Because I think the specialized are going to be the folks like the environmental organizations. They're going to look at it from the view of whatever's biological aspects. And sometimes, they have their own specific goal at hand. Tribal governments will be focused on cultural aspects. Water, hydrology, but when it comes to the others, that's their livelihood, so naturally.
Right, and they've got the experience of the last several years.
So then my question would be, instead of having a peer review, a consultant from the Lake County hydrologist list, instead of having them have a seat on the board, just having them there to help direct instead of having a seat, have a voice?
Well, maybe they would be on the team side of it, or,
To be available for,
yeah, I think that's the seat that we could change. And maybe we have Cannabis Alliance, and then we have an industry at large seat that's available, and then we've got two members giving their experience to this group, so it's not just one perspective.
like that.
So we changed number 9 from peer review to, what was your suggestion language?
A cannabis industry,
Cannabis industry.
and then hopefully the person from the alliance and the industry have different backgrounds.
And maybe we should make that known on when they fill out their applications, to really let us know what side of the industry you're on, what knowledge you have, so we can make that proper decision. I'm good with that, yeah, I'm good with that.
So I'm not hearing any other comments, so I'll open it up for, Supervisor Sabatier?
I'll just make my final comments. with the status of where the industry has gone to, where we are today, the amount of people we're looking to incorporate in this and the amount of time spent to make this happen, I think it's gotten overly complicated for something in my mind, and I don't know that we all agree on that, but it's just not that complicated. I just think it's too much for what needs to happen. So I'm kind of looking back. Granted, the industry failed as well, so maybe we failed at doing our ordinance, but we had a very small group that worked on the hemp ordinance, came back with the hemp ordinance and made it happen, and was able to work through that. And it was a very small group. I believe there was only 5 people on there. And we were able to bring back some recommendations by having it reviewed by all. And I just think this is looking at it from a very complex perspective, and a lot of time put into something that I'm not sure if we were completely wide open, how many new applications would be coming in right now. So that's my only concern, is the amount of effort and work put into this and asking people to take part in this when it's a completely different environment than it was. And yes, we do need to make some updates to this, but I just think this is a complicated way of doing it.
All right, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this? I'll open it up for public input.
Brian Martin, Lee County Sheriff. I'm going to start out by commending Director Darby. This is quite a task. She's been very proactive in her approach, and this is one of those issues where no matter what you do, you'll never make everybody happy, and it's extremely complicated. So kudos to her for taking this on and being so proactive. As far as having participation of law enforcement, I don't know that's the most appropriate thing to do for a couple reasons. The first reason being that this industry still has people in it that aren't really comfortable with law enforcement, and for this to be effective, I think you need a lot of public participation. I think going into a room and discussing your business details with law enforcement present in the room, knowing that we continue to have an obligation to take enforcement action when we're aware of a conduct that might run afoul of the law, might dissuade some people from participating in a way that would lead to a meaningful resolutions or outcomes for this. The other reason is if we're going to participate in our capacity as law enforcement, or in my capacity as the sheriff, and somebody takes some action based on what they heard from one of these meetings, and it turns out it runs afoul of the law in some other manner, it puts us really in a weird situation. Despite the legality within California, some of the product that's grown in California ends up making its way out of state, and to put us in a position as law enforcement to say that we participated in discussions and told people how to do this, and it resulted in them getting arrested somewhere else or running afoul of laws right here in California, it kind of puts us in a really awkward position. So I appreciate the invitation. I appreciate the consideration. I don't know that I would accept the invitation, so that might help address some of the members of the people on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Martin.
Richard Durham. Thank you. So 3 minutes is going to be really tough. I don't know where everybody's been, but I spent 3 years hammering out Article 72. We don't need 73. It's written horribly. If I was a teacher, I would flunk the student who wrote it. And I'll leave that alone. As far as the ad hoc committee, there's outdoor grow, mixed light, greenhouse, and indoor. We can't leave those people out. They each are going to have something to say about this. And I would recommend that we just go back to 72 and fix whatever we don't like. I mean, we don't need a whole new, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We already have it. I mean, I'm compliant. So are a lot of other farms. So what you're saying about 73 is that we're not compliant, or, I mean, we are. And therethere's things like, you know, the background check we don't like. There's other things, you know, that we can just work on those. And as far as the limiting the industry to 1 or 2 people in the discussion, I have a complete different style of growing than my neighbor. And for them not be able to come in and me to be able to make my points is just, it's not helping the industry. You're satisfying some bureaucracy. So I think we already have rules. If there's some that need to be changed, I'm all for it. And that you can use this committee to do that. But, you know, there's stuff in there where all outdoor grows must be fully enclosed. It's kind of, I mean, who would write that? And who would leave it in the, you know, in the final version? You know, if you read through it, you'll realize it's just words. You know, we should just go back to 72, fix what we don't like, and move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, good afternoon, Chair Crandall, Vice Chair Scott, Supervisors. Erin McCarrick, Clear Lake, Vice President of the Lake County Cannabis Alliance. And thank you to the Community Development Department, for Director Darby, for everybody who's worked on this, everybody who came to the, the community visioning sessions, the feedback sessions. It was a clever way to get feedback, so appreciate that. Just echoing the same thing that has been discussed here, that there definitely should be more than one LCCA and/or cannabis industry representative on this. I'm a distributor, and my perspective is wildly different than a cultivator, than a dispensary, than a processor. There's things that when you look at the ordinance at the state level, at the county level, that just, unless you do it every day, you don't even know the regulations that affect you. So it's super important to have that. Our industry doesn't necessarily have a preference on law enforcement on there, so whatever works. And I didn't even think about the liability factor, but that might be an issue. Another issue that may be with the number 9, the hydrologist, is potentially conflict of interest. Like, everybody on here is going to have an agenda coming into the ad hoc committee. And as we've seen with some of the appeals and some of the planning commission hearings, every hydrologist is different, and every hydrologist may be working for a farm or something. So maybe this is a way for Director Darby's academia to come into this conversation, is maybe there's somebody in the academic water world who has not consulted for a farm that could be number 9. If you'd like, I did 1 through 9, and you can also knock off the bottom 2 if you just want 1 through 7. Something that could work for us could be tribal, LCCA 1, LCCA 2, community member 1, community member 2, Farm Bureau / Ag, Planning Commission, that's 7, and then Board of Supervisors and Hydro / Academia, if that's of interest. The thing with having somebody from the Farm Bureau and somebody from the Ag Department is, as of now, we are still not necessarily declared Ag. It depends on who you talk to. It's vague. Some places we are Ag, some places we aren't, but we do not fall under the jurisdiction of the Ag Department in Lake County. And the Farm Bureau, the cannabis industry had tried to join it. People in the cannabis industry have tried to join the Farm Bureau and have not been accepted. So there's a bit of an inherent bias there. And as Chair Crandall said, the community members may be vocally against it. I'm not sure, right? So the deck would be a little stacked if there was a bunch of Ag and a bunch of community members out there in terms of conversation, right? We want to have a balanced conversation, and yeah. So thank you so much, everybody, for your work, and that is the feedback from LCCA and me.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board of Supervisors, and Ms. Darby, thank you very much for putting all the work into a huge task. I'm going to try and stay pointed about the things that I want to bring forward. I think, you know, without going too far or too far away from our conversation, I feel like we're making mountains out of molehills. I think that the county and the people here have spent a huge amount of time creating Article 72 to begin with. To see that completely scrapped is really sad. especially for the people that participated in it. I think that we could streamline things if we could focus on what we're trying to get done, which is create regulations that are workable and functionable, not just people's opinions. We're trying to find how do we put these things into play. So if we looked at the aspect of cannabis as an agricultural crop, and then we look to the state as far as how those things are distinguished, defined, and ultimately processed through the law, I think that we would keep ourselves from having to rewrite our entire ordinance. And I'm not sure where we got to the point where we were just completely throwing out Article 72 and the years of time and effort that went into that. I remember a number of you guys were there for all of that, right? And so to see that completely go away seems just a huge loss, you know, monetarily, not to mention the time. And the whole idea of all of this was to get to a point where we could streamline our processes so that we could process more applications, so we could bring up the economy of our county. And the idea of us doing that in a fashion that is about bringing more legal cannabis to the forefront was the whole point and purpose, I think, of us taking a look at the law or the Article 72 to begin with. And it seems like instead of us processing more permits, we've actually processed far less if you utilize the time and staff to rewrite the entire ordinance into now 73. So instead of processing more, we've processed less. Instead of streamlining it, we've covered it in red tape. I don't see how we're actually moving towards what I think all of us had talked about to begin with. And so with that, none of that is to be rude, and I try not to really base that just on my opinion. I'm just trying to look at what's happened and what has been going on. And so with that, I mean, no disrespect to Ms. Darby and anybody else involved in any of this. I'm just trying to really understand how we got to this point. You know, how did we wind up back here when the whole point of all of it, I thought, was to move forward. So instead of processing permits, we've slowed down permits. Instead of making it easier, we've strung up more red tape. I'll leave that alone. However, the ad hoc committee comes together. Ad hocs are good. They've used them and focused them balancedly. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like we have a hand up from phone number 6205. If you can unmute.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. This is Bart Levinson. I am not hearing the voice of the people who live here represented in these meetings and in this room. And I'm not hearing from you, the supervisors, the voices of the people that you've heard from for years now coming to your town halls, who have had a lot to say about how their quality of life has been impacted and their concerns about the additional fire risk that the growing industry brings to the county, the road degradation, and the issues of wells going dry and drought. And I'd like to see that the town halls that have heard the years of testimony and experience of the citizens already here be somehow included, so that what you arrive at is what I think you're intending, which is bringing the industry into the county in a sustainable way that the county can actually manage, it can grow, and the citizens who live here feel good about living here with it. So I'm asking each of you supervisors, please, to speak up and say something about your town halls and make sure that the people from each of your town halls are represented on this task force. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I can speak from my town hall. This is not an issue that we've been discussing. And on the task force, we have 2 seats for community members. So I think.
And we have public members who have spoken today who have lived here for a very long time. And so not sure how we're not hearing from our community.
And I think we have to remember, we heard from our community when this was voted on, and that's why we're here, because the community voted to make this legal in Lake County, and that's why we're moving forward, trying to develop something that works.
All right. Looks like we have another hand up from Betsy Kahn. If you can unmute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Thank you. You know, I have a completely different perspective on this, as you can imagine. My concern is that we've created a specialized kind of a permitting process that deviates from the basic CEQA system. The traditional permitting process for major use permits requires that the initial study include an analysis from the Department of Water Resources. If the Department of Water Resources is not capable of providing the level of analysis that you need, then I think it's that department's responsibility to identify the kind of qualified consulting service or specialization that would enable us to protect our natural resources. The Agricultural and Natural Resources Service from UC Davis might be able to help us with this, but I really hate turning it into this kind of a little local, competition. And I agree with a lot of the things that Ms. Levinson said about the fire and, other related issues. I'm not seeing that the CEQA process is really the basis of our understanding. I hear all the competition, but I'd like to see it handled in a straightforward fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Smith.
Good afternoon. This is Jennifer Smith, president of the Lake County Cannabis Alliance. We, the industry, have advocated for a long time to streamline the application process and align more with state policy. I think doing this through the ad hoc committee is the best way to do it, because since we've written Article 72, the state has implemented regulations as well as they've changed those regulations. And I think the more that we can align and streamline the process is the actual goal of this. I don't want to see this get bogged down in committee. I want this to be functional and moving forward. Therefore, people that this affects in terms of its application should definitely, be involved and have more than one seat. Long-term personal goal would be to be in the Department of Ag. I think this notion that we're not agriculture because of commercial transactions has got to be figured out, both at the local and state level. But there are things in agriculture that apply to us that we should be able to take advantage of, i.e. ag exempt buildings. A building's a building. It doesn't matter what the crop is that it's protecting. And I think that this is the task force where we can flesh some of this stuff out. While I appreciate a lot of agencies and other departments being involved, I'm not so sure they need to be involved in the day-to-day operation of an ad hoc committee. I think that they should be consulted and their opinions brought back in. And I think that taking that perspective might streamline this list a little bit. But this is definitely, the list just went away. It's definitely an important feature to have views from the community. But if the end goal is to create regulations, whether it's a revision or a new regulation, we're not going to we should not be getting bogged down in should cannabis be here, right? Like the toothpaste is already out of the tube. And so I think if we have non-industry representation, that needs to be very clear. We're here to regulate. We're here to have safe environmental practices. The state regulates those safe environmental practices. We adhere to water board standards and we adhere to Department of Pesticides. So let's let the state do their job. Let's let the county have a zoning ordinance and let's build that ordinance in this ad hoc. And let's be proactive to regulate the industry, but not regulate how we farm. Let's have an application process streamlined. I'm a little passionate about this. Not very well spoken today, but I hope that we can get this down to, at maximum 7 members, because we're going to have a real hard time getting a quorum of many more. Thanks.
Thank you. I don't see anybody else with any hands up, so I will, if there's, yes, come back up and state your name for the record. And
Erin McCarrick, Clear Lake, just 30 seconds. I was driving in, so I was on Zoom, so I might have missed it. Are you guys deciding today what the, timeline is for the application? Does that happen today? Just wondering.
yes, go ahead, Johanna.
So I suggest that we do the application deadline on the 15th instead of the 16th, because I was planning on posting on Thursday. So unless you want me to post on Friday, I think it should be the 15th rather than the 16th.
Would that be an issue, Ms. Darby?
We can't
Oh,
hear.
they're on mute, I think.
And I think she had us for July 15th for the selection. So the closing was in June. And so it wouldn't be on the agenda.
It was going to be back on the 21st.
So I'm sorry, my dates are off. The appointment of the task force, I think my conversation with Johanna was the 21st. That's the error. We were actually, that would give like a week. I think we calculated a week and some days for that. These dates.
So the application deadline would be June 15th, and then it would be back on the board agenda for the 21st of June for appointment.
That's correct.
Okay, so it's, okay, it says July, right? And that's where it was, okay, got it. All right. So applications to be received, and then the 15th would be the date, right? And then the 21st would be, all right,
The 21st of June.
Yeah.
yes, 21st of June, okay. Does that cover that? Are you guys on the same page?
Yeah,
All right.
sorry.
Okay. And so with that, I don't see any other public comments, so I will close it and bring it back to the board. Supervisor Pyska?
So just, when we started having these conversations a year ago, the intent was to streamline the process, and we've heard that in several comments today. And I think that, for me, is the biggest priority, and I don't know if that's everyone's main priority here, is to just take, we have something, we want to make it better, we want to move, we want it streamlined. And so I think defining the task for this task force is really important. And when I'm looking at the composition, we do have code enforcement up there, but code enforcement is under CDD, and CDD is running this task force. So I think that's one that we could eliminate because they're already going to be there with staff. Trying to remember who else is on there. If we can somehow just get it down to 7.
And so
Is that what we're at? We were at 9?
we were at 9, yeah.
Yeah, can you, Mary, can you?
Is
put
it
the-
not showing? Let me share again. I'm sorry.
There you go.
So we're going to have code enforcement participating through CDD. So I think that number 8 could go away if you all agree with me.
Oops, you got rid of agricultural commissioner.
Just a second.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So, and Aaron had suggested cannabis industry 1, cannabis industry 2, community member 1, community member 2.
Farm Bureau and Ag Commissioner.
Yeah, and then that doesn't give us an even amount, but it brings the number down a little bit.
Ag County, the Cannabis Alliance 2, for that one, number 2?
Well, we had industry 1 and industry 2, and hopefully one of them would be Cannabis Alliance, I think. But then if we want accurate representation from the industry, then maybe we need 3 because we have cultivation, distribution, and retail, right? Those are three really different components that we're trying to work on.
Supervisors from, or
In my opinion, the Cannabis Alliance represents all of the above, people who are involved in every aspect of the industry. The public, which means anyone from the industry, no matter what your license type is eligible to come and provide a 3-minute comment or whatever that public comment time will be. And I think that's the job of why we're inviting the Lake County Cannabis Alliance, because they have the ability to be the spokesperson for any of those license types in order to sit down and figure out what the needs are. And I agree that part of this process was for streamlining, but I think that there are some issues with the ordinance as well, that while we're doing this, we can clean it up some. We've learned a lot as we've gone through some appeal processes and things like that. So I think that we shouldn't take what we've learned over the course of the last, I want to say, 1.5 or 2 years since the last big revision in order to make those changes happen, rather than streamlining it and still having those issues remain within the ordinance. So,
Well, streamlining and making it better.
yeah.
That's what I said. So both of those things.
But I think that there's so many license types. I mean, I think there's 13, 14. I'd hate to see one position for each one. I really think that is the job of the Farm Bureau. It doesn't matter if you are growing wheat, if you're growing pears, if you're growing grapes, you're able to represent that industry as a whole. That is my expectation of the Lake County Cannabis Alliance.
Okay, so 2 from the industry, 2 from the community, Farm Bureau, Ag. And then do we need a planning commissioner? I mean, I think it's
That's
probably
one I
good.
would say. If we're trying to get to 7, then
Yeah.
say we pull out the planning commission. I would be in favor of that. Leave
And-
the ag
you either
commissioner in there.
I would
Yeah.
say you either pull that one off or add 2 planning commissioners, so you have, and I don't know how we're choosing the folks that we're picking, but I know for me, if I choose a planning commissioner, I'm going to look at their voting record and see which one's more pro and anti, and appoint one of each.
Well, I would hope that we all look for a balanced approach rather than one side or the other. And just want to speak real quick about the agricultural commissioner. To me, our agricultural commissioner is a neutral party in this. They have a large portion of the Farm Bureau, and they also have a large portion of what cannabis is. It's a plant that is grown in the ground, and they have knowledge of what is the processes and what is available through law and code that both can utilize. So I see the Ag Commissioner as the equalizer for that, and the Farm Bureau and the Cannabis Alliance being equal. So I think it would be even easier to just provide one spot for the Cannabis Alliance rather than 2. I just think smaller is better and it's more efficient.
Well, then I would say 1 community member then.
Yes.
I don't agree with 1 community.
No, I think you need to keep 2 community. I think we need to keep the tribal, the Cannabis Alliance, 2 community members, farm, agriculture, and another from the cannabis industry.
I'm just concerned about having a majority of community members if you've got 1 representative from each. So if we kept the way it is here, but we took off the planning commissioner, then we're at 7, and then we've got,
And I don't think that the DCC should be a voting member, absolutely an invited guest to be a expert to provide information. I love the fact they want to be involved, but they should not be voting for our local ordinance.
right.
I'm good with it set up that
Yeah,
way, right there with those 7.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good too. So then what is the task of the task force? I think we should have kind of a united
She laid it out a little bit.
Right.
Number of task members.
Do you have a slide on
Review-
that, Mary?
Review,
Yes.
discuss, consider, and develop guidelines for regulatory solutions surrounding commercial cannabis concerns in the following areas, and then it goes through the
It's
3 items.
land use, environment, and community, and then she broke those down.
Okay,
So,
Supervisor Simon, go ahead.
so I think directly to your point, the question is, are we streamlining 72 or creating 73? That's your,
Yeah.
that's what you're asking right now, right?
I think that one is not as simple as that, because I think pulling it out of 72 and making it easier for people to access rather than scrolling through 300 pages of Article 72, so you could just carbon copy what's in 72 for cannabis and put it in Article 73 to at least make it easier to find and access, and then tweak what is now Article 73. So I think 72 and 73 could be the exact same thing, but we're looking for streamlined,
Yep.
for processing, I mean, not just for the industry, but for our staff, to not have to go through so much process.
Right.
When some of that process could be done by the state or is unnecessary for us to do. And also looking at fixing some of the things that need to be fixed. And
And I think those pain points need to be identified too before you get too far into the weeds. Like, what is it that needs to be fixed? Like, yes, we need to streamline. Yes, there's a lot of good work here, but what exactly are those issues that have been causing everybody pain, our department pain? And, you know, what is it that's not working, and identify those kind of right off the bat, so then you know what work you have to do.
She kind of did that, though.
Well,
I'm sorry, Supervisor. So what I've identified in the 1, 2, and 3, the 3 different categories, those are the issues that I've heard the most, or comments that I received from, or comments I received from the workshops. So like if you have here the land use and zoning, you'll see hoop houses are concerned, the setbacks are concerned, buffers, exclusion zones, fencing, and permitting. Those are some of the highlights of the issues that we've been receiving for that particular category. And then under the environment, of course, water usage, a drought management plan criteria, fire, environment, energy, and agricultural standards.
And if I can interrupt, I think that, yes, streamlining, but if we say fix and we only say specific things to fix, I think we're restricting the ability of the committee to truly make substantial change that will affect in a positive way.
Right.
So I think that I like what's lined out right now, and I think that even that should be limited. And let's see what the committee comes back with. But our goal is to enhance and streamline in protecting the industry and protecting our communities and being more efficient in our processing of these applications. That's what I would say is just the main goal. The more specific we get, the more restrictive the committee is from actually making the changes that might need to be made.
Fully agree with that statement.
And I'm fine with what the result is of the composition of the committee itself. I think that works.
Yep.
All right.
But a very tall task, the whole thing as
Yeah.
a whole. There's a lot of passionate people on all sides of this, and Director Darby, I thank you very much for taking on this task.
Thank you.
All right.
I'll have to say, I'm a little concerned about the comment about people wanting to join the Farm Bureau and their applications being denied. I just wanted to put that out there.
Some things take a little bit more time than others.
Still concerned. That's wrong.
Oh, from that video? All right, is there any other, you have your pen up?
It was permanent.
So we have the makeup, instead of 9, it's 7, and then the laid out goals, like you mentioned, that basically had a consensus.
I think we should just approve the task force, and
Yeah.
right? That's where we're going. We're not adding,
Nope.
we're not adding any limitations. We're just approving the task force.
I agree. Just approving the task force.
Okay.
And the direction
Which was,
on the slides
okay.
that she's prepared.
I think only on our agendas we're able to approve the
Yeah.
task force, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what
Okay.
we're doing today. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve. Oh, I didn't see a pen.
Go ahead, man. You started. Go ahead, bro.
It was hiding behind his second laptop.
That's all right.
I move to approve the current composition as shown on the screen for the revision of the cannabis ordinance.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for that, Ms. Darby, and thank you, everybody, for coming for that item. We will, it's laid out for the 15th, and that will be the date when everybody accumulates the applications, and then,
Submit your apps.
thank you, Johanna, for that input as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Bruno, you had a 5.6, right?
Yes.
Approve agreement, I'll go to 5.6. Approve agreement between County of Lake Crisis Support Services of Alameda County for after-hours crisis support services for fiscal years 22, 23, 23, 24, 24, 25 in the amount of $252,000 and authorize the board chair to sign. And so, did you want me to just give the floor to you first so we can?
I can provide my reasons for pulling if you'd like.
There you go.
So the reason I pulled this item is twofold. One is the $252,000 matches perfectly. If you look at it at $7,000 per month within the document from Alameda County, it said that there would be an annual increase of 3.5%. So that was one of my concerns, that the 252 doesn't quite cover the 3 years. But then my other concern is our RFP process is if we get more than one bid, which here we got two, which I appreciate that Director Metcalf sent me the other one and agree with the decision as to going with Alameda, but I appreciated the extra information. That if you get more than one bid, that you're supposed to rebid annually. That was our purchasing ordinance that we had approved, and so I'm looking to approve this for a single year rather than a 3-year, which in a sense would also resolve the amount potential issue. And that was it.
Todd, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, Supervisor Sabatier just stole all my thunder. That was exactly what I was going. I mean, it makes total sense. If we can, really, what I'm asking here is, can we still just please approve this agreement? We'll amend it to be a 1-year agreement. We'll adjust the dollar amount. That would take care of those rate increases that Supervisor Sabatier mentioned, and of course. Our apologies that we overlooked that part of the RFP policy. And so if this agreement could be approved today, of course, we'll go out to bid again for the next fiscal year. But it looks like if we just adjust the time period from a multi-year to a 1-year contract and adjust the dollar amount, we should be okay.
And just want to add, I appreciated seeing that the other bid came from a local resource that is utilized by Mendocino County for the same service, and I'm hoping that at one point in the future, as we continue to rebid this, that they might get closer to something that Alameda County is offering us. I'm not quite sure how Alameda County affords what they do. It was down to like $11 an hour or something like that, so I'm not quite sure how that works, but I believe it was RCS, and just appreciate that they submitted a bid, and happy to see that we're getting multiple bids on these things, not just a single one or none.
And as you know, I mean, we also contract with RCS for many other programs and services, and it was a tough decision, but Supervisor Sabatier, as you pointed out, it did kind of come down to the quality of the service that we've been getting, and also just dollars and cents.
But Vice Chair Scott, you had yours up, and then I'll come back to you.
The only question I have is, does this 24/7 access to after-hour support, does this include the FERC hotline number that's state mandated?
I believe so, but you know what? That's a good question, Supervisor Scott.
'Cause that's not working here in Lake County at this point.
Yeah, I'll have to double check that. I'm pretty sure it does, but I could be mistaken.
Okay, if we could double check on that and just let me
Yes.
know. Thanks.
Absolutely.
And just wanted to add, we do have, and Supervisor Simon, I know you changed this on our purchasing ordinance. We changed the amount for local bids.
Yeah.
Did we change the percentage? But I know, I don't know if
I think we
RCS.
changed the percentage, from what I understand.
Yeah, I don't remember the specific, but there is a local reduction of if we get a bid and it's a little bit above an out-of-county or an out-of-area bid, that it has the ability to compete with a 10% or 15%. I know we changed it, but,
Changed it, we made it so it was,
and I don't know if RCS meets that, but I just wanted you to be aware, just in case that something like that comes up, because going local is always a better option if we can.
Absolutely. Is that in the?
It is in the purchasing
policy
ordinance.
Anywhere? Because I don't recall, I don't believe I knew that.
I think it's in a different section than the bidding process. It talks about local bidding or local support. Yeah. I'll send it to you.
Noted. Thank you.
I'll send it to you. I'll find it.
Thank you, Supervisor Spatier.
All right. I don't see any other comments, so open it up to the public on Zoom. And I'm not seeing anybody raise their hands, and so I'll bring it back to the board for action.
And I just want to make sure with Director Metcalf, if I make a motion for 22-23 for $84,000, that is the correct amount for that year?
That is correct, because the 3.5% increases don't go into effect until,
23-24.
yeah, so, yeah, we're good with that.
Just wanted to make sure we didn't have to force you to come back. So I move to approve.
I love being here.
I move to approve the agreement between County of Lake and Crisis Support Services of Alameda County for after-hours crisis support services for fiscal year 22-23 in the amount of $84,000 and authorize the board chair to sign.
second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Director Metcalf.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I know that was a little messy, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. 7.6, discussion and consideration of administration of the jail medical contract. And with that, we have Sheriff Martin here.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm bringing this agenda item to the Board of Supervisors to outline some goings-on that's been going on surrounding this contract and to request some direction be provided to county staff. As you know, the jail medical services have been provided at the county jail by way of contract since 1995. I found the agenda item from December of 1995, during which the Health Department requested that contract be in place to provide jail medical services. Prior to that, it appears that jail medical services were provided by county staff, with the public health officer acting as the responsible physician and public health nursing staff being tasked with the job of clinical services out there. We have a legal obligation to provide county medical services to our incarcerated population, and those costs are borne by the county. The laws surrounding that, in addition to a whole bunch of case law decisions that have come down, include Title 15 of the California Code of Regulations and Penal Code Section 4023. Shortly after the Health Services Director was appointed to his position, myself and members of the jail command staff met with him in January to discuss several things. One of those things was discuss this contract, this very contract, because we were aware that the contract was set to expire at the end of June of this year, and we wanted to give him some advance notice that it would likely need to be renewed, and that a bid process would probably be recommended so that we can get the best medical services available for our dollar. In speaking with the Health Services Director, he indicated that he couldn't find a bid proposal or request for proposal from the previous administration, and in doing some research, I found that the previous, or the current contract that's in place had had undergone the process to request a waiver from the bidding process. It was granted by the Board of Supervisors in 2019. The justification to waive the bidding process during that presentation was due to the unique nature of goods or services that were received by way of this contract. I would disagree with that assessment. I would propose that the services aren't unique. This has nothing to do with the current health services director. But I was able to, with a quick search and just based on my knowledge of the services performed by various companies, I was able to come up with a list of 8 similar companies that provide the same services throughout the country and here within California. And certainly a good use of public taxpayer dollars is found when we go through this bidding process. On April 28th, after my meeting with the Health Services Director, I received an email from Director Portney informing them that he had reached out to WellPath. By this time, April had rolled around, and we were coming up close on the expiration of the contract, and I hadn't seen anything, any requests for proposals put out, nothing on the board agenda to renew this contract. And of course, this contract is a very essential public service that needs to continue without interruption so that we can provide medical services to our staff or our inmates housed at the jail. On April 28th, I received the email from Director Portney indicating that he'd reached out to WellPath representative for a 6-month extension. And in that email, he also indicated that he did not intend to renew that contract, rather place it in a suitable controller's hands. That led to several discussions, both with members of my staff and Health Services Department and myself, about who the suitable controller might be if it's not to be the Health Services Director. Administration, crafting of a request for proposal for a contract of this nature requiring specialized services is not something that anybody in my department has the skill set, the knowledge, or the background to do, and not to mention the fact that the reason that we're contracting in the first place is because the health department requested that contract to be put in place in 1995. Additionally, adequate oversight for administration of this contract is necessary, and there is nobody in the sheriff's office that has any skill or ability or knowledge to determine what is adequate administration of medical services at the jail other than what's in compliance with Title 15, which is the bare minimum, and I don't think it's fair to have sheriff's office staff oversee that contract. Over the next period of time, I heard several comments from staff as well as from the Health Services Director directly indicating that he had several reasons for not wanting to administer the contract. Some of those reasons included there not being enough return on the investment for the services that were provided by way of this contract, that he didn't get paid to do this, and that he wasn't legally required to administer the contract. I'd like to touch on a couple of those. I found those comments a little bit concerning. As far as a return on investment, this is a service that we provide. We're not in the business of profiting off of any services that we provide, particularly in the jail medical. It's an obligation that we have. People that are incarcerated, generally they're involuntarily, don't want to be there, and we have a legal obligation to provide those services. While it is highly burdensome amount of money to be spending, it's simply something that we're required to do. As far as being paid to do this, this is something that the Health Department asked for, granted not the current administration, but the Health Department asked for this back in 1995, and it's been the duty of the Health Services Director ever since that time continuously to administer the contract. As far as not being legally required to do this, he's correct that there is no legal requirement that the Health Services Department administer this contract, and I don't know if there's any legal requirement that contracting services be provided for anything, and we as public servants do lots of things that we're legally required to do and lots of things that we aren't legally required to do because it satisfies some obligations that the county overall has in carrying out its functions. Shortly after that, on May 23rd, I received another email from Director Portney indicating he had negotiated a 6-month contract extension on the current contract, and that after 6 months, there would be no more funding in his budget to support that contract. I didn't see anything on the board agenda, and it left me wondering what what authority this was being taken under, if there had been some decisions that were made that I wasn't aware of, that would change drastically the method by which we provide these required medical services to our inmates. The county ordinance is fairly clear on who has authority and what to do this. Of course, the board ultimately has authority on what to do. The county ordinance designates the position of the county purchasing agent, and it designates, which is the CAO, and it designates assistant purchasing agents as all department heads. The county ordinance is clear on what the duties of the county purchasing agent are, and one of those duties is to assign the assistant purchasing agent's responsibility to assist in the performance of various duties related to procuring, securing bids, and administering contracts and services for our county. I think the decision to no longer administer this is likely outside the authority of the Health Services Director and lies within the authority of the county purchasing agent, or alternatively, with a decision of this magnitude, likely should be made at the Board of Supervisors level. This contract, as your board, I'm sure, is well aware and from many discussions, the provision of adequate medical health services that are in compliance with the law, in compliance with certain court decisions that have come out over the years, is one of great concern as far as liability goes with the county. This administration of this contract has additional impacts on other departments in addition to the sheriff's office, most notably behavioral health, because a lot of behavioral health services are included with the service of this contract. Ultimately, by function of the contract and by function of the law, the responsible physician for the medical facility has ultimate decisions on all those decisions, whether they're medical or behavioral health in nature, but certainly the contributions that the behavioral health department makes are something to be considered as well when deciding who's going to administer this contract or whether or not there will actually be a contract in place at all. Again, these are decisions that likely need to be made at the board level. I had informed the Health Services Director by way of email that these services aren't optional, that the county is the contracting entity, and it's the county's obligation to provide those medical services in the best way possible. I had heard from the Health Services Administration that there's other counties that do this different ways throughout the state. He's absolutely right. There are other counties that do this different ways, and I'll tell you that just because somebody else does it different doesn't mean that we're doing it wrong. There's models all the way from Siskiyou County who by way of the Health Services Agency up there has staff providing medical services at the jail, to departments that run it as ours, where it's either county administration or some other entity that administers the contract. And there's also other counties where the Health Services Department administers the contract. What I will tell you is that in doing a quick research of what it looks like in counties where the Sheriff's Office administers these contracts, it didn't take me long to find a 2015 grand jury report from the County of Santa Cruz in which the grand jury found exactly the type of issues that I'm talking about right here, that administration of this type of contract by the Sheriff's Office I will say the grand jury investigation came after there was a series of, I believe, 4 or 5 in-custody deaths that occurred within 2 years after the Sheriff's Office administering the contract that was provided by WellPath. And that's not to say that that was the reason those deaths occurred, but they certainly felt it necessary to mention that in their grand jury report. And what they found was that Sheriff's Office in Santa Cruz County, which I'm sure is much more well-staffed and has probably a lot more resources than we do here in Lake County, lacked anybody in their staff that had any expertise or necessary experience or knowledge to adequately oversee this contract and ensure that there was adequate provision of medical services. Under Lake County policy, Section 7, Section 1 of Section 7 designates the responsible department head for contracts. And the reading of that county policy is that the head of a county department agency, special district, commission, or committee which requests consulting or contract services which are subject to this policy is identified as the responsible department head. I would say, I would propose to the board that based on the fact that in 1995, the Health Services Department requested this contract for medical services be provided, that responsibility carried on through the years and continue to this day. And that if there's a decision to be made that it's going to be somewhere else, that decision not be made by an appointed department head, that it be made by the Board of Supervisors. What I'm here to ask for today is for the board to provide direction to county staff on a couple of things. The first question that we need to have answered is, are we going to continue with a contract providing jail medical services? We can certainly go back to the way that we did before 1995 and have county employees provide such medical services. That's certainly allowable, and it would meet our obligations. My opinion on that is I think that's not the best idea, probably the worst idea out of all those, given the nature and the increase in requirements of medical services, not to mention the upcoming requirements that CalAIM programs are going to take on jail medical services within the facility effective in January of next year, or that the board provide direction and identify which department is going to be responsible for administering this contract and carrying out all the tasks that go along with crafting a request for proposal, crafting a request for contract. Certainly the Sheriff's Office will be glad to assist whichever department that may be, but in any event, this can't sit around for another 6 months and have us at the end of the year trying to figure out what we're going to do for jail medical services. So that is my request of the board today.
Are there any questions for the sheriff before I ask Director Portney? He has his hands up. Director Portney, I see you have your hand up. If you can unmute, I'd like to see if you would weigh in on this.
Thank you, Board of Supervisors, for having me. Thank you, Sheriff, for your input on the matter. If I could try to address some of those points, or most likely will not be in order, but I'll give it a shot. So we have a contract here with WellPath, which was potentially formerly known as California Forensic Medical Group. This contract agreement has been from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020. Per law, we are supposed to, every 3 years, go out to RFP for a new service provision regarding jail medical services. That 3-year term is up to date, so it's about that time. So when I say that we're not going to renew our original contract, is true. I can't renew the original contract because the original contract is void because we have to go out to RFP. So the sheriff is right there. I would like to look at a couple points in this RFP. The sheriff is correct. The county is to ensure that said medical services are performed, rendered in a professional, competent, and efficient and satisfactory manner. That's where the sheriff gets the opportunity to twice annually request that the public health officer do an annual inspection. Going to another point, the California Forensic Medical Group, which is known as WellPath, agrees to update, maintain policies, procedures in partnership with the Sheriff's Department, manuals, whatnot, to ensure that everything regarding patient care for their inmates is up to par in their facility. Going to another point, that the reason why we contract a service like this is because an organization like WellPath hires and maintains a medical director, a director of psychiatry, and they're responsible to ensure the quality and healthcare provision within the county jail facility and provide clinical supervision to mid-level practitioners and the staff who are providing services within the jail. Now, you may be curious, what kind of services do they provide? We contracted them because they provide full scope service. And what I mean by full scope service is medical health, behavioral health, and other services. And when you look at other services, it touches on aspects of social services, et cetera. But the medical health and behavioral health far exceed any ability that we have as a county to be able to provide this service. So in short, I would say that this contract and this service is vital. And I appreciate the taxpayer and the Board of Supervisors for letting the health department and the county at large pursue this opportunity for our inmates. Now, getting back to the point, I can't renew the contract because it's up for RFP. So we have to establish a new contract with a different agency or establish a new contract with our current agency. Now, when it comes to renewal of our current contract, that's impossible because it's going to be void here at the end of June 30th. We did get a 6-month extension, but that's only going to go to 6 months. And after the 6 months, again, we're going to have to go to RFP. So when I say that we're not going to renew the contract, that's true. We're not going to renew the original contract because we have to establish a new one. We did get an extension with a 5.19% increase due to the 8% inflation that we're experiencing right now, and that's going to help cover any additional costs. And to my last point, the health department is stuck in a precarious situation here because when it comes to wraparound services involving the sheriff's department, and there's expectations in here that the sheriff's department are supposed to be held accountable to, along with behavioral health and social services, whatever, different departments. So this contract and the health services department holding it forces us to hold our peers accountable to work being done inside the jail, both on potential entry and exit. As peers to these agencies, it puts us in an interesting situation to hold a certain accountability that I feel is outside of our wheelhouse. And I think it takes a higher authority to be able to hold accountable goals, objectives, outcomes to reduce recidivism in our jails, to make our county a little bit healthier and safer. That's my feedback regarding those points. And if there's any clarification needed, I'd be happy. Oh, actually, the last thing is, considering we are a self-funded department, health services, and taking into account the inflated rate that WellPath is needing to continue service, I can't negotiate a new contract with taxpayer dollar, right? So I'm unable to negotiate a new contract at an inflated rate because I'm a self-funded department and I don't have a grant or funding to cover those inflated costs. So that would need to come to the board for consideration. I think that's my final point. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions for either?
Oh, I see Stephen on. I don't know if there's...
Oh, Stephen, yes. Stephen, I see you on. If you can give us some insight on this as well.
Well, I'm here more for questions than anything else. But the funding for this is currently for 22-23, 80% general fund, a little over 2.4 million.
Stephen? Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
And behavioral health does put in some of their realignment to the tune of about 254,200. Public health used to put in some of their realignment of 404,000, and then also realignment 2011 from CCP would put in about 450. So the bulk of this is general fund. Other than that, I'm more question and answer at this point.
All right. Thank you, Stephen. We're going to entertain a break real quick. Supervisor Sabatier would like to see if he could take a break. So if we could take a 5-minute break briefly, and we'll come back to this once we're finished.
Nice.
We are back, all right. So welcome back from the break, and so we were just finishing up with a statement by Stephen. It looks like I'll have Todd Metcalf, Director Metcalf, he has his hand up, and once he's finished, I'll come to you, Supervisor.
Thank you.
Director Metcalf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Sheriff Martin and Director Portney for their input here. And I just want to say this contract is vitally important. It was mentioned that there is a behavioral health component to it. And I do contribute to this contract, as Stephen Carter mentioned, a little over $250,000 a year. If this contract were to go away, I don't have the staff capacity to fill in for the behavioral health part of it. And so I'm here to support this however my department can, though, you know, we don't have a lot of money either. But I want to support this. We need this contract, whether it's with WellPath or whomever, but these services are vital to folks in the jail, and I'm just here to support it however I can. And I appreciate Director Portney at least getting an extension to this contract. That's great, and maybe that'll give us some time to figure out where we go from here. It sounds like this, well, considering the item that was just heard, yes, I'm very familiar about the RFP process and learning it myself, but I don't believe the departments that are involved in this, none of us have the capacity to take this on our own. And I'm behavioral health. I don't do medical stuff, so I don't think my department could handle it. But if that's where it needs to land, okay. But I don't. And I know Sheriff Martin is referencing a very old. How far back was that? 1995. And but it still seems to me that the Health Services Department might be the best place for this to land, and I will support all of it as best I can, because my department can't take on the behavioral health piece of it. I mean, we're doing some already, but I'll stop there. But thank you for that. This is a great conversation, but this is pretty heavy, and we need to figure out where this is going. So again, thank you, Sheriff Martin and Director Portney, for entertaining this discussion.
Thank you, Director Metcalf. Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, I have a few questions and then wanted to make an offer and a comment.
Should I let Crystal and Jonathan speak before, or did you want to?
I'd like to speak right now, if possible. Mr. Portney, I just have Director Portney, I just have a quick question for you. You said there's an extension. Is that a 6-month extension? Is that what I heard correctly, or?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I appreciate that. And has there been any initiation of an RFP, or this discussion is what helps us figure out where the RFP is supposed to originate from and what exactly we're asking for?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I think we have 6 months right now.
Yes, clarification, yes, sir, to which question?
To the fact that we're waiting to make a decision on where the RFP comes from as far as which department and who's going to take the key role of leading that RFP process.
So there hasn't been an RFP started yet?
So yes, that seems to be the case.
And this is, so I'd like to add comment on that. So in part of this RFP process in collaboration with behavioral health, and I don't want to throw social services in there because I'm pretty sure through the CalAIM they're going to have some part up with exiting inmates for linkages of service to reduce recidivism. So what I want to express is, in the contract that we currently have, care, coordination, and collaboration must be included and the sharing of information between providers essential to the provision of appropriate services and care. So what I would ideally like to see is one contract holder, but then MOUs between partnering agencies to identify what the scope of work is between agencies, so it's actually trackable. And we're able to actually identify what resources we have within our individual departments, and then be able to track our success in providing care both in and out of jail. Right now, we don't have that. So we don't know how we're contributing to the health of our inmate population, or contributing to the lack of recidivism of our inmate population. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you for that. And so jail medical is absolutely necessary. It's a mandate. Basically, we have to provide the service. I think I can speak that we all can agree that the state of California doesn't exactly provide us with the resources necessary to be able to maintain the service need for the inmate population we have. We used to be a county jail of no more than 1 year. Now we're holding people for almost close to a decade. That is a whole different ballgame of what kind of medical requirements that is on a county. And all those changes that have happened in the state has just increased our resources that are needed to make that possible. So I think that's one of the reasons we keep seeing the increases and so on. I think this is a complex topic, especially I appreciate Director Portney bringing up CalAIM. That does create some potential changes. And I don't know that there's enough information today for us to say, this is where it belongs, this is where it doesn't belong. What is necessary is that we have the contract, and that we continue to provide those resources to our inmates. And what I would like to offer is, we had an ad hoc committee that was directly working with Director Portney. I would like to see if maybe that same committee can meet with the stakeholders and figure out what options can come back here, because right now it's kind of like everything's on the table, and I'd like to have A, B, or C, or A, B, or just A if there's only one direction to go. But I just feel that we need to have a more intimate conversation on how to come back with options for the board to review, rather than what we have in front of us today. And so I believe that that committee was put together with Supervisor Pyska and Supervisor Scott. Not sure if those two are interested in that, but that would be the direction I would like to move forward, so that we can come back with options rather than the grand open book of things that are happening.
I would love to serve on this committee, but I think it'd be best to pull another supervisor, since I'm only going to be here for the next month and a half.
And I didn't want to be rude and suddenly do that to you.
Supervisor Pyska.
So as mentioned earlier, I do have some requirements, and my requirement is to ensure the provision of medical services within the facility. I don't think there's a whole plethora of options that are out there. I think the question that's before the board today is, do we continue with the contract or not? And if so, which department head is responsible for administering that contract? And that's all the guidance that I wanted. With the 6-month contract, that only leaves us at 6.5 months. It's going to take quite a bit of time. I think an ad hoc committee might be appropriate to help whichever department head is tasked with crafting the RFP. I think that's perfectly appropriate. I think that would be very valuable. But as far as a decision today, this isn't something that we should start off by kicking the can down the road. I think the decision needs to be made today on whether or not we're going to contract, or if we're going to go back to the model that we had prior to 1995, or if we're going to continue to contract, which I would recommend that we continue to contract for many of the reasons that that Director Portney stated, as far as the services that are required exceeding the capacity of county staff. And simply designate today which department head's going to be responsible for administering this contract. And I think I've made it clear on my position that I don't think it's appropriate for the sheriff's office to administer the contract.
So just if I could interject, to answer those points, I totally agree. Continuing a contract is going to be essential for jail medical services, keeping in mind that we do have to go to RFP for this service. So there's no doubt that contracting for this service is going to be beneficial and essential for all. So that answers point one. I think to point two, I would not mind having this be under the Health Services Department as contract oversight, but I do need the autonomy and authority to be able to manage the contract accordingly. That would require MOUs between stakeholders to hold accountability to the work being done. So I think that, to me, that answers both of those questions. Is we have the opportunity to either continue, if they win the RFP process, WellPath, or to get a different service provider. But at the end of the day, there needs to be accountability for the services being done and appropriate tracking of those. What I do know is in my individual budget, because I'm a self-funded department, I do not have the ability to pay out of pocket for these services. This is going to require a full-time staff member to manage this between partnering agencies through an MOU process. And I'm willing to take on that task, but it needs to be outlined clearly what the scope of work is and what the deliverables are between each agency.
And so I'm going to go ahead and open it up to Crystal. She's had her hand up for quite some time, and then Stephen, I'll go to you. And then back to you.
Good afternoon, Board. Yeah, I just wanted to, to outline what I think the Department of Social Services responsibility is in this, and we do have one, and that is determining eligibility for Medi-Cal upon release, and that will continue in CalAIM, but that is where it is limited to that. And we'll continue doing that. I think that, we're going to continue to partner with our county partners regardless of whether there is an MOU or not. That's how we work in this county, and you can expect that from social services moving forward.
All right, thank you. Stephen?
I just wanted to, as quasi-purchasing agent, I just wanted to ask, I don't recall seeing the extension being on the board agenda at any point. That's way past signature authority.
The extension, you said, is past signature authority?
The extension, I believe, is in the hands of City Council to be signed.
Or county council.
County Council.
County Council, sorry about that, yeah.
So it's in the works, and then to the board.
Correct.
Ms. Grant?
Yeah, the extension agreement was sent to me just last weekend. I signed off on it yesterday, although the language was interesting. And, but I signed off on it because it had legal merit, so it should be going back right away. So I would, if you don't mind, just remind everyone that the contract with CFMG, now WellPath, is with the County of Lake. So the administration of the contract and what that means to your board is something that your board would be considering. And I don't know that you have to be so top-heavy as to have MOUs between health services and these individual entities. What you may want to do is just clarify your board's expectations of all the individual departments that are involved in the contract and who's going to be doing what. But that's just a suggestion.
Supervisor Pike?
Yeah, so it sounds like the extension's coming to us soon, and we have the 6 months, and, bringing back the ad hoc committee and working through what the scope and the expectations and the functions are going to be for the new contract. I don't think we have, and the funding, yeah, all of these moving parts. I think, we'll only end up better if we do this work together now.
And so will the extension coming back, like how soon is that? Probably in a week or two? Are you looking for something today? Or
I was hoping to come out of here with something today. Like I said, this is the RFP that's going to have to go out. It's probably going to take several months to go over and we get all these stakeholders together. I'm not opposed to these ad hoc committees, but there needs to be an entity that's designated with the responsibility for getting this going. And ultimately to be responsible for the oversight of it. And as I said earlier, I value the oversight. I know there's a lot of talk about, sheriffs don't want oversight, but I have no idea what goes into quality medical care. I know if I don't like something my doctor does, but maybe that's the best thing for me to be done medically. I think it takes somebody or a department that's got the background and the knowledge to know what quality care looks like, and to oversee that type of contract and make sure that the services are being provided under the contract are being overseen by somebody with the appropriate qualifications and skills. And again, I think time is of the essence. I would like to not see this get kicked down the road. It's the process for crafting an RFP, going out to bid process. This is a large contract. It's going to require a consultant selection panel to be put together and to review this, and then to work out any logistics should some other company win the bid. I have no idea. I'm not here to support or oppose WellPath one way or the other. This isn't the discussion for that. But the reality of it is WellPath could continue to provide services, or it could be some other entity that can provide services. Regardless of who it is, there's a lot that needs to be done between now and the expiration of the contract that probably shouldn't wait any longer.
Excuse me.
Yes, Ms. Grant, go ahead.
The only thing I would say is that since I've looked at the amendment, I can send a copy directly down to your board. It can be on for next week's agenda. And I believe that the CAO is prepared to move forward with an RFP, and that can also be explained to your board on next week's agenda. So it will move forward with alacrity.
Yes, we've already been working with health services on the RFP. We still need to meet with stakeholders to make sure the scope is as broad and unique as it, or discrete as it needs to be. But we will be providing that assistance as needed to move this forward.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Ms. Grant. And so, how does
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like, we're moving in the way we need to. So we got the extension coming. We're going to set up the ad hoc committee, and we'll get an RFP out.
I think we're on the same page there. Supervisor Sabatier?
I'm offering to be on the committee if that is something the rest of the board approves of.
Yeah, I think we'll bring it back next week, and because we didn't talk about the ad hoc on the.
You're right.
So we'll add that to that component.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah, we'll add the ad hoc component to that item, and that way he can fill the Supervisor Scott's seat since she's.
Or anyone else. Sharing my interest.
Yeah. All right, and we can discuss that day. So I think that's where we'll be moving forward on that. I don't know if I have to open it up to public, because I did not open it up to public.
I'm unclear. Is it in the board's inclination that county admin administer the contract?
No, what's happening is the next week we'll come back with that to move forward with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sir, I believe this is just to facilitate the RFP process to move it forward quickly.
So if I can recap.
Yes.
There will be a contract brought to us next week for an extension. That contract, just like it is now, will be a contract with the County of Lake with scopes of services as to what is expected to be done within the contract. There's a scope of service in every contract.
Nothing will be changed because the
Of
amendment
course,
is only as to
but there's a
term.
scope of service that already
Exactly.
exists.
Exactly. That will remain.
That will be amended for timeline, but not amended for changes for scope of service. Also, there will be a conversation about the RFP process where we are, as well as the new composition for the committee to meet. That way, we do not kick the can down the road. We are proactively, now that this has been brought to us, moving to get that resolved and understanding what are the stakeholders' roles, where is the funding coming from, and all of the other stuff that we've discussed. That way we can make sure that as we create a new contract with post-RFP, that it's exactly the kind of contract that is going to benefit all of us. Just wanted to recap. Is that correct?
That's what I thought, but I think you're asking who obtains responsibility. Are you still
Which
at that?
department head is going to be tasked with the oversight of the administration of the contract?
I would suggest that at this moment in time, if we're extending it at this 6-month process, that it continues as it has, where public health services and remains in the same role they were. The sheriff department, the jail staff remain in the same role that they were. WellPath in the same role that they were.
For the extension of the contract?
Yes.
Are we making a decision today on going forward, or is that going to come at a later time?
I think the RFP process will be crafted with the way moving forward.
Okay.
Jonathan, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Supervisors. You know, just to maybe even contribute to any, limiting any further confusion, I don't necessarily mind managing the contract, but what I do need support in is clarity and accountability for the contract and the ability to have the proper authority to execute the contract accordingly. When it comes to roles expectations of this contract, to be quite frank, they're not being fully met. And so when I do ask questions, comments, or need information from partnering agencies, either internal or external, I get that with full support from the board and partnering agencies. That would be my request. And I'd be more than happy and willing to serve our partnering agencies and our inmate population and contributing to their health. But I need the ability to do my job in managing the contract. Thank you.
All right. Supervisor Simon.
I just think that our request can be accommodated with the ad hoc committee, the RFP. I think we're going to get clarification on everything. I completely agree with, we got the 6-month extension. This board has not changed anything. It'll go forward as is, and then we'll have the deeper conversation when the RFP comes through and we have our next agenda item. That's what I'm leaving with today.
I will open up the public. Don't see anybody in the chambers. Anybody online that's in attendance that would like to have a comment on item 7.6? All right. With that, I'll bring it back to the board, and looks like we have direction for next week.
Yep.
And we'll make sure that that's taken care of next week. Thank you, Sheriff Martin. Thank you, Jonathan Portney. Thank you, Todd Metcalf, and thank you, Crystal Marketan. And Stephen. Thank you, Stephen.
Take care, Stephen.
All right. Go to the agenda and see what I got here, because I think we did cover everything except for calendars.
Yep.
So with that, we will start with, who's ready?
I'm ready.
Vice Chair Scott.
Yes, my calendar. First, I'd like to report out, a couple weeks ago, I went to the needle exchange because we had so much public comment, concerns about what's going on down there, so I wanted to see for myself the dangerous situation that the children are in at the needle exchange. I'll have to say I was there for probably a good 2 hours. I did not see any children whatsoever on the street. I talked to the people running the service. I found that there was a lot of good information being handed out. While I was there, there was 2 people that approached the needle exchange looking for services. They actually were not looking for needle exchange services. They were looking for food and resources. One was actually looking for food for their dog that they had and water. I did find some really good information that they have. I know that there was a concern about children finding syringes up and down the street. I'll have to say that's not probably unique for that area. We see this all over California. There's needles out there. So there was some great information that I was given. I know you can't see this, but it's syringe, and it's all done in kids' language, understanding and teaching the children that when you find a syringe, not to pick it up, that it's dangerous, and that, some syringes are good, and they go into, when you go to the doctor or to the dentist. So there's some great information for our youth that they're handing out also. So it's not just about exchanging needles. There's a lot of information, resources. They were handing out clothing and food, and just having the camaraderie of talking to somebody, building that relationship is what I found. And actually, what I found that was the most dangerous on that street was the cars driving way too fast. I wouldn't want my children playing on that street because of those cars, not for anything else that was going on down there. So that's my report out for that. Tomorrow, I will be headed to Sacramento to receive Hope Rising's. We are Nonprofit of the Year for our Assemblywoman, so I'll be going down with our Vice Chair to accept that award. And then I'm hoping to be back by 5:30 to do the Blue Zones Walk. They meet up behind the Clear Lake Club at 5:30 on Wednesdays in Lakeport, and we walk for like 30 minutes and, get to know each other and find new people. And it was a lot of fun. I did it last week too. And then Thursday, I'm going to be meeting with, actually it's a woman and has a new baby that was put into the housing new units here in Lakeport. She's actually from the Nest Project. And she's moving into a new home, and Seroptimus supported her with getting furniture and funding. So I'm going down just to see her and congratulate her on all the hard work that she has done to get to that place. And then on my Friday's pretty open. On Thursday, I will be doing Hike for Hospice in the morning with my family, and then hoping to hit the Lions Club. They're opening their new park, or they're having the ribbon cutting at the new park here in Lakeport.
Can't skip over the hot dog theme.
Yeah, Hike for Hospice, my family and I will be dressed up as hamburgers and hot dogs and condiments. And then we'll be going hiking through Highland Springs, so it'll be quite entertaining.
Take pictures, the wildlife will be out.
Quite entertaining. And then Monday, just getting ready for Tuesday's meeting.
All right. Supervisor Simon?
To finish up today's meeting, doing football this afternoon, but probably not going to make that, but the rest of the week I have that. Tomorrow morning, I don't have anything on Wednesday morning at this point. I got the South Deal Committee on Thursday. In the evening, I have the math. I do have the Planning Committee meeting on Friday, but I do want to report out, I attended Congressman Thompson's second wildfire roundtable with quite a few representatives from Congress. Obviously, state agencies were BLM, U.S. Forest Service, CAL FIRE, to really just continue to talk through the conversations about where we're going over the next decade. And that's the way we need to look at this thing. It's going to be quite a while as we're doing it, whether it's fire suppression, whether it's vegetation abatement, cultural burns, back burns, a lot of different conversations on how we're doing that. I know that there's a lot of funds coming through the agencies, but talking about also how do we get those funds on the ground, implementation to do work, and not only for our county or nonprofit agencies, but how do we also get it to into the county to our private landowners when they're looking at other opportunities as we move forward. So just going to continue those conversations as we move forward. Program we are running here in Lake County, obviously, the pilot program for the home hardening was a specific conversation. I know that is a pilot program, and it'll be rolled out over the next 3 years. And then, hopefully the successful program that works here will be all countywide here in Lake County, but also throughout the state. So a lot of conversation on that and looking at what we're doing, staffing needs, general conversation all the way across the board, whether it's CAL FIRE, U.S. Forest Service, is getting those things staffed and be ready, and really look at changing that conversation. We all get caught up into that fire season, but there's no longer fire season. It's all year round. We have climate change affecting us, and we really need to look at it as what season are they working in? Are they looking at vegetation abatement and removal, and then fire suppression during the fire season? So continuing those conversations and really talking about what we're doing here in Lake County with the Lake County Risk Reduction Authority and all the government agencies at the table, looking at our best fit grants so we're not competing with each other, we're just helping each other bring as much funds into the county as possible. So we'll continue those conversations, and they're hearing us. They're hearing us. Supervisor Paiska, she talked about it a couple weeks ago, the meeting she went to in Santa Rosa. What was the name of that?
That was the Wildfire and Tree Forest Resiliency Task Force.
And so CAL FIRE, our state CAL FIRE, Joe Tyler was talking about, hey, we're looking at the tree mortality in Lake County, all the other issues. So, we're doing a good job. We just need to keep working, and as we're communicating Today, we worked through another grant, obviously, for the ingress egress for the Riviera, kind of a pilot program there, but we know these things will hopefully grow into just countywide programs as we're looking for funding, so excited about that. But it is, you know, as you guys all know, bureaucratic, it's talking through things. We want to see it. Also let them know, we're not waiting for them. We're going to ask, but we're going to continue to try and do things community-based and work with both the cities, the counties, tribal governments to just make an impact here locally, and we'll continue to do that. But we appreciate any of the funding that can be specifically brought into the county. So I was happy to be on that call, and we'll continue those conversations. Give me a second here. Calendar close. And then obviously Thursday night, I have the math meeting. Math meeting's got a pretty good sized agenda. I know our new ag commissioner is going to be down there talking about some new fans that are up, have been brought up in our area. We got new wineries, so frost protection, something you know that's on the agenda. We have some project updates. I'll be giving an update and you know, obviously taking questions also. It's a hybrid meeting, so we'll continue to do that on, like I said, Friday we have the weekly planning meeting. Saturday, I don't have anything Saturday or Sunday, obviously, just family time. And then back here on Monday, I would like to ask CAO Parker, are we going to do 9 a.m. on Friday? Or I know we have it on Monday because we skipped that meeting. Is there availability on Friday?
I will make myself available on Friday.
We could do 9 a.m. If we could get to that Friday calendar, it'd be great. I know that week threw us off, but greatly appreciate it. And then obviously in the afternoon, the CMAT Reporting Committee, and then the Lake County Risk Reduction Authority meeting at 3 p.m. on the 13th, and then back here on the 14th on Flag Day for the Board of Supervisors. I just saw it on my calendar, Flag Day, so anyway.
All right. Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, I have a couple things to report. Last week, we had the OES, or Cal OES officer come up and kind of walk us through the process of how we have to get that started. It's pretty daunting, but we're just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. We are waiting for a couple more key pieces of information to come through, and then we're going to be building our package with our asks so that we can get started on those projects, because we're starting from a place where we don't have the capacity or the funding to move into what we have to do. So it's about to get really busy with us. We're waiting for that CAL FIRE report from our flyover. We're waiting for a couple other things, and then we'll be getting really busy with that. I had a meeting last week with what is going to be the Canocti Fire Safe Council. It's the 4 HOAs in the Rivieras have formed Fire Safe Council, and they are actually moving forward with forming a 501(c)(3) also. So this is huge news, because this is the work that we've been trying to get our Lake County Fire Safe Council to do. And these 4 HOAs are very strong. They have a deep bench of experience, and they've been through the process, and they said it actually wasn't that bad. And we've been hearing a lot of stories about how hard it is to do this work, and it's not. And they've agreed to really help us build that template for the county-wide Fire Safe Council. So I want to give huge props to those HOAs and the work that they do, because they have really come a long way. We have an amazing collaboration together with not just the zone of benefit and the code enforcement work that's happening, but this new evacuation grant that they helped write, and then and then submitted to Public Works, and then Public Works submitted it to the Fire Safe Council. So just having the collaboration grow, this is an example of the work that we're able to do together. So that's really exciting. At the end of the month, the 23rd and 24th, we're taking our next steps to continue the collaboration that we built with the Risk Reduction Authority. And we're having all the stakeholders on a 2-day workshop so that we can start aligning ourselves in the work that needs to happen so that we can build that Lake County Fire Safe Council. So there's been a lot of outreach to all of the partners. If any of you, I don't know if you've heard about it or if people are asking about it, but Supervisor Simon and I will be at the Lucerne Castle those 2 days. That is a workshop provided by the Fire Adapted Network, Community Network, which is all pro bono work to help us on our mission. So amazing things are continuing to happening, and that's building on the CMAT work that we did last May. Oh, right, and Memorial Day weekend was opening weekend for all of the Cobb resorts and resorts around the county, so it's really great to be welcoming in the tourists for the weekend, even though it's a little on the chilly side. It was still great. There were a lot of people at the pools, a lot of people out and about, so it's summertime now. Okay, so tonight, I don't think I'm going to make it, but there is a weekly farmers market in Cobb, which is so sweet and amazing with lots of vendors, and it's really busy. It's at Pine Grove Resort from 4 to 7, so hopefully my family's there right now or about to go there and take advantage of everything that's there because there's a lot of great things. Tomorrow, I've got an appointment in the morning and a lot of catching up to do. Thursday, Fire Safe Council meeting. And then Thursday night, I will be at Kelseyville High School for their senior awards, giving out the K-Corps awards for those kids that have been working for 2 years for K-Corps. K-Corps, yep. Friday morning, I have the home hardening meeting. Saturday and Sunday are the 2 community drop-off days for trees and slash and other vegetation. Community members can be cleaning up their yards and deliver it to the air curtain burner, which now has a new location at Adams Springs. It's $25 for a pickup truck load and $50 for a trailer. And so you can drop off between 10 and 3. And then once a big enough pile is accumulated, then we're going to fire up the burner and start getting rid of all that debris. So that's been another really big collaboration. I want to give a big thanks to the Cobb Area Council's Forest Stewardship Committee, working with South Lake Fire, with the CAL FIRE donation of the curtain burner. So a lot of partners, again, wonderful community collaboration to address this need. It's it's kind of a pilot project. We're going to look at this as a template where we can replicate it other places where there's a need to get rid of the vegetation. So that's Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday, I have a meeting with CAO Parker, our CMAT reporting meeting, and Risk Reduction Authority. And then back on Tuesday, which is Flag Day.
All right. Supervisor Sabatier.
Are we all supposed to finish with that?
Yeah, it was on there, I was like, Flag Day.
Thank you. So last Wednesday, got an invitation from the sheriff to be a part of a conversation about CalAIM. CalAIM is a new program from Medicaid that the state of California is rolling out that is more of a whole person scenario. So appreciate the invitation. Conversations I've already started to have over with CSAC, so taking that information and bringing it to that meeting. Looking forward to the upcoming meetings for that. Got to have the privilege to take a flight out of Lamson Field and land at a Sacramento airport, the CAL FIRE airport to be exact. And with Director Ewing and Lakeport representatives and Clear Lake representatives, got to tour a whole lot of aquatic centers and rec centers to kind of take a look at what is already in existence, how much did it cost, what's the maintenance, what's the self-sustainability of these projects, so that we can come back to the drawing boards here for what it is that we're looking to create here in Lake County. I thought that you were made aware of that, Supervisor Scott, that I was invited to that, and I'm sorry that it was a surprise at the last Tuesday meeting that that was the first time you heard that when I mentioned I was going. But there was a lot of awesome stuff out there to see, and I sure hope that we can just pick one up and drop it right here in Lake County, because it's not, it was filled with everything but youth. We know that our youth are going to utilize those places, but because of the time frame that we were going on a Wednesday morning, afternoon, it was jam-packed with elderly adults, it was just, it's what we need for everybody here. So I'm looking forward to continuing those conversations, and thank you for starting them. Then next, the following week, I went to the Far North Transit Symposium. Our APC team of Davy Bates and Associates were taking the lead in creating that symposium. The amount of information that I learned about hydrogen systems and the infrastructure needed, and the comparison from hydrogen to electric was amazing, inspiring, and absolutely makes me see a different vision of what we need to be working on for the future here in Lake County, especially when it comes to public transit. So I appreciated the fact that they held that over in Ukiah. I did miss out on the beers and axe throwing, which next year I'll have to make sure to take advantage of that. Sounds like fun. But that's just a quick recap of some of the things that I did last week. This week, tomorrow, I have a meeting with the audit committee. If I have that chance, I'll also be able to meet with CC4C. Looks like we have a roadmap task force meeting, starting at 1 tomorrow. I'm hoping to make it to our first 5 meeting that's happening as well. Is that correct, that it's on the 8th?
No, first 5 isn't till the 22nd.
So I still have the old version of when they
And
meet.
the audit committee meeting, if it's the same meeting I go to, that's not,
I thought it was on the 8th. We'll figure it out.
no, I think they moved it. I think it's been moved.
Okay, I'll have to just review my emails. I apologize for that. Pretty wide open on Thursday and Friday, just have a lot of work to catch up on. I hopefully have a presentation I'll be giving to you guys on the 14th. And I am coming to Lakeport on the 11th, on Saturday. I believe it's in Library Park. The Symphony is, the Lake County Symphony is doing a event, and they asked me to talk at that event. And I know that my son went through violin lessons that was brought to you by Susan Conde, who was part of the Lake County Symphony, and those were all funds that came from there. Really appreciated the programs that they have to offer, and I think music and our youth are two things that need to continuously happen in our communities. Other than that, that's all that I have, other than meeting again here on Monday with our CAO, and then coming back for our Tuesday meeting.
Since you're coming to this side of the lake, you should put a costume on and join us for Hike for Hospice at 9 o'clock.
Do you need relish? Oh, and Flag Day is on Monday.
It's Tuesday.
Oh, Tuesday, sorry. Doesn't say it on my calendar.
All right. So I'll go back to the Clear Lake Blue Ribbon Committee. We had a couple weeks back, but it was we didn't have a meeting in between, so I wasn't able to report out. Basically, we are going to be having another, I think it's like a special meeting here at the end of June to discuss the oxygenation project that Turk is proposing. And so a lot of the other projects seem to go through pretty without so much contention. However, that one needed some more questioning, so it'll come back at that date. I think it's at the end of June.
Is that Ocrity?
What's that?
Is that Ocrity?
What's that?
The person who's offering, sorry.
Oh, no, Turk, Tahoe Research.
Okay.
Tahoe, yeah, they've done an oxygenation project before, and so they're looking to do that in the Keys area of the lake, so.
Awesome.
So then, of course, that same day I attended the chiefs meeting for the fire departments. They're looking to, and I'm not, you guys probably already knows this, but it was in the district. Chief asked me to go, Chief Ciancio asked me to go, so I attended. And so I think it's going to be in Lakeport next time. I'm not sure. I think it's monthly, so it might be third or fourth weekend of the month, I think, or something like that. So I'm not sure. They have a temporary chief right now. So just letting you guys know that they're hoping that each supervisor in the district can go to the meeting while they're in that district, because they rotate. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see, Ad hoc Advisory Committee on Wildfire. I know Supervisor Pyska had attended with us as well, and I think we came to a final conclusion of a lot of the policies that we're looking at. A lot of the other supervisors deal with a lot of similarities that we do, and I think you enjoyed it to hear some of their comments, because they were pretty on it. So we have a list that we're looking through and hoping the idea is to give RCRC a better opportunity to represent us as a rural county. So a lot of the policies that we're opening up is looking at different things like insurance and tribal ecological knowledge and tree mortality and things of those natures, land acquisition, conservation easements, and the list goes on with a lot of different policies that they're looking at. And so the goal is that they can serve us as basically our representation when they're at the state. So that was that meeting, and I know you were there, so you enjoyed it. Let's see my calendar. Back to that. Last week we had the Cannabis Ad hoc Committee with RCRC as well. Basically talked with other counties that are dealing, Humboldt being one of them, Trinity, a lot of the counties that share cannabis ordinances and whatnot. But then there's also some groups that were there that were not part of that. They're actually, didn't have any cannabis, and it wasn't allowed in their counties. However, they still deal with the illicit grows. So after discussing further and further, that was going to be our topic next. The next meeting that we have is illicit grows. They did go over some bills and whatnot, and I don't know where I just had those, but I'll save that for another date, that they discussed that were in, that are still alive in the Senate or the Assembly right now that are going to help us with specific things coming forward. Let's see. Yesterday we had the Middle Creek Restoration meeting. We also met with the Habibitul Pomo of Indians of Upper Lake with the Water Resources Department, and that was pretty good. We're talking about some issues regarding, of course, Middle Creek and a couple of other things. And so we'll be looking for that Middle Creek Restoration meeting in a couple of months. They were also very excited about the opportunity for the funding from Congressman Thompson and Susan. Thank you for the work on that. They were ecstatic about that in the meeting. Tomorrow, agenda review, roadmap task force at 1, and then Lake County Tribal Health is doing honor 1 is to honor all for graduates. So they asked me to come and say a few words there. Thursday, South Deal, Law Library Board of Trustees, and Lath in the evening. That's where we'll actually also talk about one of the topics that you brought up, Supervisor Scott, was the needle exchange. That's going to be on the agenda for that night as well. So let's see. Friday I have pretty open right now. We'll see how that goes. I'll probably fill it with other things to prepare for either the next week or for the next town hall the next week. That's what I usually try to use that day for. CAO meeting in the morning on Monday, and I don't think I have anything else on yet. Yeah, I don't think I do. There was going to be a workshop, but I think that got pushed out for the Upper Lake levee situation. Water Resources was working to have something like that, but it didn't go through. So we'll be back here next week for the meeting.
And Audit Committee, 22nd at 10 o'clock.
What is it?
Audit Committee for Supervisor Sabatier.
22nd.
22nd,
Oh my
10
goodness.
o'clock. And then I won't be able to be at agenda review tomorrow. So don't wait for me.
All right. With that, I think that concludes our agenda. We can go into closed session. Let's see. I don't know where. I'll just read it from this one. We have 8.1, Public Employee Evaluation, Health Services Director. 8.2, Public Employee Evaluation, Public Health Officer. And 8.3, Conference with Legal Counsel, Existing Litigation Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, FERC Project Number 77, Potter Valley Hydroelectric Project. With that, we'll go into closed session. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today, and we will come out of closed session later on after we're finished. So.